All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started here. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate everyone making the time here on a Wednesday morning. And I'm excited to spend a couple minutes today talking with you guys about some cool new ways to automate document-centric business processes. We're going to explore how to automatically create sophisticated documents, presentations, and reports with Conga Composer, store them in Google Drive, and then provide instant visibility and access to those files with Cirrus Files. So I'll introduce myself briefly before I introduce my co-host here. I'm Robert Boyd. I work in partner enablement at Conga, and excited to spend about 30 minutes today covering the topic of Conga Composer and Cirrus Files. And I'll let Brandon introduce himself over here.
Hey everybody, this is Brandon Bruce, one of the co-founders of Cirrus Path. We make the Cirrus Files application that we'll be talking about today, as well as an application that some of you may have heard of on the AppExchange, Cirrus Insight, which is also a Google Salesforce integration for Gmail, Google Calendar, and Google Contacts. So thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for making the time, Brandon. It's great to have a co-host. So I'm going to go over our agenda real quick today. It's going to be a fairly brief webinar, but we'll kick things off by talking a little bit about Conga Composer's integration with Google Drive, which allows you to create documents, presentations, and reports, and immediately save them in Google Drive for a couple different use cases that we're going to cover. We'll let Brandon cover Cirrus Files and provide a little overview of that. Then we're going to jump into a discussion about the integration between these two applications and how they work together to close the document storage loop. We're going to get into one of my Salesforce demo environments to see a couple examples of how this works. And then, of course, we'll save a couple minutes for Q&A at the end. If you have questions that come up along the way, you can enter them in the GoTo webinar sidebar there in the questions section. And we'll make sure to get to as many of those as we can. And then probably the most fun part, we're going to raffle off a free full conference pass to Dreamforce to one lucky attendee. So we'll be randomly selecting someone and announcing that at the very end. So we'll start off by talking a little bit about Conga Composer's integration with Google Drive. The integration is available with Composer Release 8, and it gives Composer customers a couple powerful new options for output file storage as well as document collaboration. So there's really two primary use cases. First, Composer gives you the ability to save a copy of either a Microsoft Office or a PDF file directly to Google Drive. So one key part about the integration is that it allows an administrator who designs that solution to specify exactly which folder in Google Drive that merged output file will be stored within. So you get a lot of control over exactly how files will be indexed, and you can create a directory of the files you might be creating with Composer. The second primary use case is how Composer offers the ability to convert a Microsoft Office file to Google format. So this allows for a document, presentation, or a spreadsheet that started off in Microsoft Office format to be converted to its relevant Google format, either docs, sheets, or slides, so that it's editable. It makes it easy to collaborate with other members in your organization, and it's stored in a shared location. So that graphic at the bottom just really kind of tells the story about how Conga Composer can gather data from anywhere in Salesforce to create a document, presentation, or report in any one of those formats, and then store that immediately in Google Drive, either as a Microsoft Office file or as a converted Google format file. So for this slide, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon, who's going to cover a brief overview of Cirrus Files.
Hey everybody, thanks Robert. No, we're thrilled. As a brief overview, if you go to the AppExchange today, you'll see that Conga is the fourth most popular app overall on the AppExchange. Meanwhile, our flagship app, Cirrus Insight, is the third most reviewed app of all time. And we just launched Cirrus Files recently as a result of a lot of feedback that we got from our Google and Salesforce customers looking for a solution for document and file storage and collaboration, and establishing record relationships for all of those files with their contacts, with their leads, with their accounts, and especially with opportunities inside of Salesforce. So that's one of the reasons we're so excited about the webinar and so excited to build this integration with the folks at Conga. Is we're essentially seeing, two leaders in the Salesforce ISV marketplace that have been around for a long time, focused on solving problems for a lot of customers, coming together and trying to make a solution that will add value for all of you in your organizations. So I think the use cases that Robert will be showing today in the deck and also live will go to, show you that it wasn't enough to declare victory that we put files in the cloud, right? All of us put a lot of files inside Google Drive, and we said that's a good place to have them. But since we're all Salesforce users, we know that there's more. You can't just have files there that have no relationship with the sales that you're trying to achieve and the customers you're trying to retain inside Salesforce. So that's where Cirrus Files comes in. You're generating all these great proposals, invoices, contracts, and other documents via Conga in Salesforce and saving them into Drive. Meanwhile, Cirrus Files then takes those documents, all of the collaboration intact, all the relatively inexpensive storage of Google Drive intact. Meanwhile, we automatically show those files in Salesforce alongside the right record. So anytime you're in Salesforce, and now where was that contract? What is the latest on the proposal, and who's working this deal? All those are just sitting in Salesforce right where you'd expect them to be alongside the record. So we found in our own use, and our customers are reporting back, significant time savings and workflow advantages, knocking out contracts faster with Conga, and then being able to access them, collaborate on them, and get them out to customers faster with Cirrus Files. So I'll pause with that brief introduction and let Robert get into the showing of the use cases.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks so much. Yeah, sounds great. Thanks so much for that insight, Brandon. That I think that really tells a good story about kind of the business problems that are at stake and how you can drive a lot of efficiencies by automating the process of creating documents and providing immediate accessibility to those. So we'll spend, just before we jump into demos, just a quick second sort of summarizing what Brandon and I just sort of said about each application, is that when you combine the power of the two in terms of what Conga Composer is doing individually with storage in Google Drive and what Cirrus Files can do in terms of making those files visible and editable within Salesforce, we like to think it really closes the document storage loop there. You can generate those sophisticated documents, presentations, and reports, store them in Drive, specify exactly where those files are going to be saved, and it's exactly that feature of Conga Composer where you can define where a file is going to be stored that just makes that connection between Composer and Cirrus Files and brings it all together into this sort of process loop here. So the benefit is that this allows organizations that are using Drive for cloud storage to automate document generation and storage in a very systematic way. Makes it really efficient for users to create a seamless process and run something in just a single click. So these are the two examples we're going to cover today. I'm going to cover more of a sales-oriented example that really suits a high-volume sales environment where you might be creating a lot of invoices on a daily basis, but you need to be archiving those files somewhere, and Google Drive is a great repository for that. So we're going to be covering the invoices example first, and then we're going to be talking about account plans, something a little bit more collaborative that you might have multiple team members potentially working on as you prepare an account overview for a meeting with a customer you might have. And we're going to look at ways to enable instant collaboration for your team on one of those types of presentations. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into my demo environment here. And we're going to start off with that invoices example. So I'll give you sort of the lay of the land here on this Salesforce opportunity record we're looking at, where here it's a standard opportunity. Of course, it has related products down here, related contact roles. And you can see the Cirrus Files Visualforce page right here on the record. So right now there's no files to display. It's an empty folder repository there that it's linked to. But after we run a Conga Composer solution, with this custom button right here to email our invoice out and save it to Google Drive, we're going to see how that connection's made. So as a sales user, I might run this solution from an opportunity for someone I need to create an invoice for on this deal. And I'll go ahead and authorize. This is part of the Conga Composer integration, where we would authorize the use of Google Drive with Composer, so it will know exactly what Google Drive account it's going to be synced with. So I'll run this one more time so the pop-up comes up, and it would authorize my Google Drive account with Conga Composer, so it knows exactly where to merge that file. So we're taken to this email editor with Conga Composer. So we were able to bypass the standard user interface, but give a sales user a quick view of the email they're about to send to their customer, so they can see a quick summary of the invoice, some information about the products that are included on that invoice, and then of course the actual PDF is attached right here. So this is a pretty standard Conga Composer output file. It's just attached to our email, ready to be sent. So one more click here to send that out to our hypothetical customer here. And then we're going to see how that file is made immediately available within Cirrus Files as a PDF. So over here in my Google Drive account, over here in Opportunities, it automatically created this folder here named after the opportunity record that I generated it from, this starter package restock. So here within this folder, here's that PDF that we generated stored right within Drive. But if we come back here and refresh the page, we're actually going to see that file made immediately available here within Cirrus Files as well. So it may take a second for the refresh to load up here, but we're going to have the ability to access this file right away from this record within Salesforce. So again, like I was saying, a really good kind of example of a high volume sales environment where you might want to be saving these output files to Google Drive because storage in Salesforce is limited and fairly expensive. So being able to index those somewhere else in a way that they're accessible from Salesforce, but not subject to the storage limits and pricing model of Salesforce storage can be a really valuable way to do that. So let's move on to this second example here of an account overview, where, as I said before, it's more for a situation where you might want to create a presentation where you want to collaborate on it with some team members within your organization before actually presenting. Something that's going to require a little bit more work after the fact of just generating it. So again here, a standard account record here in Salesforce. We have our Cirrus Files Visualforce page right here. And we're able to launch a different type of Conga Composer solution here to create an account plan. And you can see this is actually going to take a Microsoft PowerPoint template, merge Salesforce data to it, but Conga Composer is going to convert that to a Google slide when we generate it here. So I'll run this solution one more time. And we're going to see sort of a similar experience that we saw before where we authorize and Conga Composer will merge this presentation for us. But we're going to move directly into the Google Slides editing screen. So Conga Composer, after it merges this presentation, will take us immediately right here. So on the fly as a user, I could begin to make changes here to this Google slide. I could edit some fields, I could review the output content, and I could also begin to share this with other members of my team to collaborate. So through here, we're seeing information about data related to our account. So of course, the related opportunities here, the related support cases that we may be grouping out by different values. Here we see all the cases that are of the problem status. We see the one case that's a question, and then we see some of Conga Composer's capabilities with PowerPoint, where we can create simple native charts on the fly. So we've got this Google Slides presentation right here, immediately ready to be editable or shared. And then, of course, back within Cirrus Files here, we've automatically created a folder here within the accounts subdirectory for that particular account, ABC Distribution Co. And then here's the exact same PowerPoint. So that's a great example of how you might be able to quickly and easily generate documents, presentations, and reports with Salesforce data, but then make them immediately accessible with Cirrus Files right from within Salesforce. So two very quick examples, but I hope those give you an idea of some of the ways in which you can use the integration and some of the use cases you might be able to apply it to. So want to thank everyone. That we're going pretty quick here, definitely, but I want to make sure to cover a couple questions because I see a few here.
Yeah. Robert, can I jump in before we do questions?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, a couple quick things to mention to folks because we didn't necessarily have time to show all of the possible use cases. One that may be of particular interest to many of you that have mobile workforces, and since there's been a lot of focus on Salesforce 1 over the past couple of years since it was announced at Dreamforce, I did want to highlight the fact that when you generate your document and then it's saved into Google Drive and then it's synced with Salesforce, you can be inside Salesforce 1 and see all of those Google Drive files just in the same way that Robert was showing in the page layout on the web in Salesforce, the same user experience inside Salesforce 1. So that way, all of your Google Drive files are not only accessible via your mobile device, which you may be using like the Google Drive app now to do it, but we're also surfacing those files inside Salesforce One so that you can see the right files when you're inside of an opportunity or an account or some other record that matters to your company. So fully Salesforce One compatible, 100% force.com between Google Drive and Salesforce. So as a result, fully secure solution, which is very important, certainly, for all of us. But we especially get asked by enterprise customers. They've got a lot of files. They're secure files. They're sensitive files because it has to do with your customers. They're just passing between Salesforce and Google Drive, which you're using already. So our Cirrus Files is installed in Salesforce, and the files transfer that way. Otherwise, I think, the big takeaway, aside from the use cases that Robert shared, is that this is a really great, 360-degree integration, all the way from document generation, right at we call it the kind of point in time or point of sale. So you want to generate that invoice or that contract or that proposal. You can do that with Conga. You want to be able to save it and then collaborate on it really easily, and that's a big advantage of Google Drive. And you want to be able to store a lot of files very inexpensively, which is also a benefit of Google Drive. And lastly, what if it's a big file? What if you want to attach to that contract, photographs of a job site or a video that needs to be appended, and you're looking at, a 50 meg file? You can upload all those via Cirrus Files. They're being stored in Drive very inexpensively. It doesn't use up your Salesforce storage, and you don't run into those limits on file size that you sometimes can inside Salesforce. So those are some of the kind of the low-hanging fruit use cases and requests that we've heard about from joint customers that I want to be sure to pass along. And hopefully you all will have some more questions that we can answer now.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. That's really good input, especially about the mobile components there. And we've actually got a really good question about kind of the mobile element of that. So David's wondering, using Salesforce One, if you could take a picture using his mobile device and then sync that to Google Drive and have that show up in Salesforce via the Cirrus Visual Force page. And I think the answer is an absolute yes, but I'll let you touch on that one, Brandon, because I think that would involve
you answered it the same. Yeah, you answered it the same way I would, because we're doing that now, and we have customers that are doing that. So you want to take a photo, shoot a video from your iPhone, your Android device, and have that go right into Google Drive and put it in the folder that then quote-unquote syncs or makes that file accessible via the Visual Force related list that we looked at earlier that Robert showed. That absolutely works and is a great mobile use case. So we have folks using our app. A couple quick examples: folks that are on a remote job site that aren't even connected to the internet. They may be taking photographs, storing those in the Google Drive app, which has an offline mode. And then because Cirrus Files is running, when they do get internet back, Google is surfacing all those into Salesforce. So that's a pretty slick solution for those that are not necessarily connected to the internet all the time. Another one of our customers is using it to take photographs of medical equipment. These are high-resolution photographs, so this is a healthcare application. So as a result, burdensome to store those very large files inside Salesforce, but very easy to do so inside Google Drive and have them be accessible inside Salesforce. So yeah, great question.
Yeah, that's a really good one, and really speaks to kind of I would say some of the more common mobile, reasons why you would need to be capturing, video or images or anything that's relevant to field work when you're on a mobile device and just automatically syncing that up. So there's one question in here that's a little bit more specific to the Conga Composer Google Drive integration. So the question is about changing Word templates to Google document templates. Another Brandon in the crowd is wondering if they can be merged the same way. And that's a really good question, because that's sort of the third use case for Composer's Google Drive integration, beyond the two that I mentioned, where you're saving files or you're converting them to Google format. This basically allows you to create templates within Google Docs. Conga Composer only supports Microsoft Office files as templates, but for an organization that's not using Microsoft Office, you could build templates in Google Docs, Sheets, or Slides, and then download them as a Microsoft Office format. So the ability to just be able to save a file in Office format would allow you to upload it to Conga Composer to use as a template. So effectively, you could build all your templates within Google Drive and then just simply move the files over to Conga Composer as templates without needing Microsoft Office at all. One caveat about that is that Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides just simply don't have the same features as Microsoft Office. So you won't have all the capabilities of an Office template, but you can absolutely use those. So again, a great question. So another question here.
I'll add one quick small point, Robert.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Because I think that they're absolutely asking about templates that would accept merge tags, which is most certainly Conga's province. So exactly as Robert described. I will mention though, if you have, for example, a template like a marketing deck, so it's not receiving merge tags, but nevertheless it's relevant to each one of the customers that you're presenting to, and you always want that deck to be accessible to the salesperson from inside Salesforce every time they open up an opportunity. There's the first call deck. There is a feature of Cirrus Files where you can define every time a sync folder gets created in Drive, we will pre-populate it with that marketing deck or with that sample contract or with that case study from a relevant industry that that customer may be in. So different type of template than the question was asking about, but kind of a good segue to mention if you want to pre-populate folders in Drive with important files for your business and surface those in each of the relevant records in Salesforce, you can do that as well.
Yeah, great point, Brandon. I guess there's more than one way to think about a template, and in the Conga world, we always think of a template as something that's going to be merged. But you're absolutely right; that's not always the case. It could just be an important document that needs to be, relevant to one particular record. So another good question in here. Brian is asking, how can we as administrators create the visual force page section that we showed in my Salesforce demo environment? And he's asking if it's difficult. And that visual force page is built in to Cirrus Files. So they support a whole wide range of objects. I think Brandon could specify exactly which ones, but those visual force pages, at least for the standard objects, are available right out of the box.
Yeah, and it's the same for custom objects. So literally for any object in your Salesforce org, you can have that visual force component show up on the page layout. As an admin, when you install Cirrus Files, it'll typically take 5 minutes. You'll have those set up for any of the objects of your choice. So you may define it to say, we want it mapped for opportunities and accounts, but you may also have some custom objects that you want to make sure are mapped on Google Drive that you can store documents, files, photographs, videos in, and surface that information on the custom objects. But yeah, it's available for all of them, and like Robert said, that is a core component of the app. So it goes in as soon as you install. And we've done a lot over the last 6 months to really streamline that install process. So it's really to the point that it's very, very fast. All of our salespeople, for example, internally, can get it up and running in about 5 minutes. So it doesn't require anything in the way of advanced coding or configuration. It's very straightforward.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that, Brandon, that I've set it up once or twice now for different demo accounts and testing, and it takes all of 5 minutes. It's really simple, and definitely no coding involved, so I would say it's a pretty streamlined process. Another really good question here from Brian. He's explaining that he works with a service company that gets input from several sources, sales reps, technicians, accounting, and he's wondering if non-Salesforce users could add docs to Google Drive that would become visible in Salesforce even if they're not Salesforce users. And again, I think the answer to this one is yes, but I'll pass this one off to you, Brandon.
Yeah, definitely. Now you can have non-Salesforce users putting files into those folders in Google Drive, and that way they'll show up for those that are users of Salesforce. They'll show up on the right record. So let's say you had someone in marketing that doesn't necessarily have a Salesforce license, but they wanted to drop an important case study onto an opportunity record so that the salesperson could then pick that up while they're on a call and say, yeah, we served a customer in your industry, and here's how it played out. That'd be very easy for them to do from the web in Google Drive, or as the question from earlier in the call came, they could even do that from mobile. So the marketing person could be on mobile, simply share a file, like a deck, into that folder, or a case study into that folder, and it would then be accessible inside Salesforce. So you can absolutely use it that way.
Yep, that's a great question there. So I think we'll take one more question before we do this giveaway. And I'm looking here for the one I saw earlier. Yes, so someone was wondering about how authentication is handled. Craig was wondering if he needed to set up an SAML connection to his Google domain, or if each user is set up one by one. And I can speak to Composer's authentication method
Gotcha.
with Google in the sense that it's going to go over OAuth. And it's specific to each user, so when a user runs a Composer solution, they'll authenticate to their Google account. But typically we see this being used by organizations that have a shared Google Drive corporate account, enterprise account, where they're all users on the same org, really, where they're going to be able to authenticate as themselves, but they'll be storing files in a shared repository. Brandon, do you have anything to add to that from the authentication standpoint from the Cirrus Files side?
Yeah, on the Cirrus Files side, likewise, our application uses a secure OAuth for authentication. Cirrus Files will give you, as the administrator, two options for handling authentication. One is for all users to transmit files under the administrator account, under the administrator in Google Drive's account. So you can just sign in once and you're all set up. The other option is to mirror all of the permissions for each user in the org. So depending on your use case, we have some customers that prefer for all the files to go in under one user, a super user, the admin, but many others prefer to have it so that each user is authenticating via OAuth, and so all the permissions are mirrored. Each of those users can see, collaborate, and open the files and folders they have permission to in Google Drive, and not the ones they don't. So that's an option, kind of step one in the configuration when you install Cirrus Files, is you'll choose the method that suits your business needs.
Great points. Thanks a lot, Brandon. So we've done a random selection here of webinar attendees, and I'm excited to announce that Abby Brooks will be getting the free Dreamforce Pass. So Abby will connect with you after the webinar to make sure that you get that, and we look forward to seeing you at Dreamforce, but you better come stop by both the Cirrus and the Conga booths to come see us. So I want to thank everyone for their time and attention today. We're wrapping up just right about on time. And of course, with any follow-up questions, you can get more information about Conga Composer and Cirrus Files on the Salesforce App Exchange. But of course, feel free to get in touch with either of our organizations about getting started with free trials or with any questions about your use case. We'd love to field those. So thanks, everyone. Thanks again, Brandon, and really appreciate everyone's time.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Great webinar. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you all at Dreamforce.
Sounds good. See you all in September.